If you're a gamer, you know the exact feeling that is the 2-week Minecraft phase. That hyperfixation where the game becomes your entire personality for 14 days straight, right up until the morning you wake up, look at the icon, and feel absolutely nothing. Look at your desktop right now, or your notebook, or your Steam library. How many unfinished folders do you have? How many half-drawn canvas files, abandoned music loops, or script outlines from massive videos are just sitting there, waiting for a completion that might not ever come? I have a confession to make, and if you're familiar with my channel, this might not come as much of a surprise to you. But my digital trash bin, so to speak, is full of masterpieces that nobody will likely ever see, nor will they likely exist in any form outside of the 10% that is done. I've done it with music, I've done it with art, Lord knows I've done it with sandbox worlds where I've said, this is my forever world. As creators, as gamers, we chase that dopamine rush of a fresh start. We love the rush of that new game smell, or when we get a new idea in our heads for projects, because at the beginning, a project can't fail. But it only gets difficult when it stops being a dream and starts requiring discipline. Today, I want to dive into why our brains are hardwired to leave things hanging in the balance, and why your graveyard of half-finished ideas might actually be one of the most important things you can own. As I said, my graveyard is full of things that I've started but never finished, and it is a weirdly comforting loop, isn't it? The sheer exhilaration of day one, the belief that this time is the time where we see it through to the end, and then the slow, silent fade into a new obsession. It's not just me, we all do this at some point in our lives, and it isn't just with Minecraft either. Countless other games or even hobbies can lead to this issue. Music production, learning an instrument, songwriting, 3D printing, learning how to code or mod games, gardening, cosplaying, costume making, reading, even fitness. Some of those experiences might hit harder for some than others because, along with the reality that we're hit with, that these are unfinished experiences that we've started but never saw through, comes the guilt behind eventually realizing that we've abandoned a part of ourselves that we maybe hoped to become. I remember before I got into gaming and doing this YouTube thing, I was big into music. I mean, I was and even am still passionate about writing songs, singing, learning how to play the guitar. The very first thing that brought me to it was band in high school. We had a school band, and if you're not familiar with that kind of thing, you have a bunch of these instruments that they tell you, hey, we have trombones, we have clarinets, tubas, French horns, trumpets. Just sit down, grab one of these instruments, and we'll teach you how to play it, and then you just learn it. I was the trombone for a while, until eventually I learned how to do the baritone or the tuba. And I'm not so good at doing the tuba as I am the other two, and the trombone is where I would probably say that I'm the best, but there's still things that I worked on. And then later on in the years, chorus happened. We were able to, sign up to sing songs for school events and such. And a majority of this was just for like pep band. It was all extracurricular stuff. You didn't have to if you didn't want to, but it was there for entertainment. And I remember wanting to make a band with my brother. At the start, we wanted to call ourselves Half Charged, but then we came up with the idea to call ourselves Simple Habits, which was a good name, and I still carry it with me to this day, even if we might not ever start a band. And a good chunk of the reason why it never happened isn't all attributed to the start it, never finish it thing. I mean, sure, it's part of it, but the biggest reason is just that life got ahead of us. My brother, he grew up, moved out, got married, was living life. We still talk a lot, we still hang out a lot, and I'm sure that if I asked, we'd find time to play some music together again. But neither one of us has the time to start a new band. Maybe that's one of the reasons that we never finish things. Why it's easy to fall into the trap of the 2-week Minecraft phase, because the ambition is strongest right at the start, but over time, maybe the drive is snuffed out by the weight of the reality of the situation. When we first start a new world, or a new video, or a book, or with art when we take out our tools of the trade and open our sketchbooks or canvases, or with music production opening the DAW programs, or getting our instruments and recording gear, whatever it might be, the project before it has even begun is perfect in your mind. It has infinite potential. No one else can see what's going on inside your mind, and even when we do let someone see into it, we're only ever really giving them a mere peek into our psyche. Because of that, when we have an outlet for expression and a drive to make something from nothing, we're excited to start. But then comes in that honeymoon phase where the initial burst of passion, inspiration, ambition dies down. It runs out. That's when the project becomes work. In gaming, maybe you just finished a starter base and you realized how much grinding you had to do to get there, and you're dreading the work that big castle will take you. In art, maybe it's the boring backgrounds that you have to draw now that all the characters and assets are done, or the tedious panel breaks you need to do to bridge certain plot points. In writing, maybe it's coming up with names for that fantasy tavern you want your character to enter, or the description of the big bad evil guy. The usual fix: drop it. Start a new project. Work on something else to distract yourself for a while. But then the problem is that it can end up becoming a vicious cycle. Your brain tricks you into escaping that friction by starting another new project, restarting a world, spinning up a different idea, all just to chase that same initial dopamine hit all over again. It's like a drug, and it can get addicting real quick. Now, if you feel singled out, I get it. I felt exactly the way you're probably feeling right now. I couldn't tell you how many empty sketchbooks I have with half-finished drawings inside them, with half-baked ideas of something I wanted to doodle up at that time and at that time only. The amount of books I have in my closet that I've told myself numerous times I would read past chapter 1. How many movies are in my living room that I've never watched once but made a mental checklist and said that I would do it. Or console games that I've never played but always kind of wanted to. I've got a guitar that was gifted to me just last Christmas, and it's not been touched outside of putting it in my closet, where it unfortunately might remain for a long while before I get it out and start teaching myself to play again. Now, is that to say that I will never actually do any of those things? Well, not exactly. I think that there is a large possibility that it could turn out that way, but I personally don't plan on letting it stay that way. I do have passion and drive and motivation, but I've also got the discipline necessary to teach myself some of those lessons, some of those things that I would like as skills for myself. Animation, I would still like to do it. It's really difficult, and maybe it's more difficult than what I thought it would be whenever I was younger. But that's the other thing too. Nobody tells you how hard it is to stay with what it is you're doing. Like I said, I will find time at some point to get back into it, to start learning how to play the guitar, maybe learning how to do animation. I just need to make sure that I don't fall into another trap that our brains tend to do, where we tell ourselves, I'll do it eventually. I hate that word, honestly. Eventually. Yeah, you mean as opposed to now? I mean, I get it. Sometimes we can't do it right now. Sometimes we don't want to. And sometimes that's okay. But sometimes we need to do it anyway. I think one of the biggest reasons we tend to start something and then never finish it is because if you never finish it, it can never fail. A half-completed webcomic panel, video project like this one, or a musical piece is still full of magic promise right at the start. Once it's complete, finished, done, posted, out there for others to see it, hear it, experience it, it's out there. You can't reverse that. Then it has to face reality, judgment, criticism, the realization that maybe it didn't turn out exactly as perfect as it was in your head. Finishing things brings a strange sense of grief in people, myself included. Not all of the time, but sometimes. I felt it most, I remember, when I finished watching the CW series The Flash. I loved The Flash as a character, as a hero, but the show had a lot of problems. It fell apart and didn't quite meet my expectations. I had this feeling of emptiness. Not heavy, mind you, just it was still a good ending, still a decent show, and I do still recommend it if you haven't seen it, but I'd spent years dedicating myself to binging the episodes, and I don't know, once we got to the end, it was weird. I just felt nothing for it. Not sadness, not anger, not confusion, just empty. And I think that's another thing. Sometimes we stop before we can make it to the finish line just because we don't want the journey to be over. Whether that be because we don't know how it's going to end, maybe it's because we know that it's going to end poorly and we just would prefer it be what it is now. But then that leads to a problem of not giving yourself the closure you need. In the end, maybe those unfinished sandbox worlds, half-drawn sketchbooks, and abandoned music loops, they're not monuments to failure, but rather proof of endless curiosity. They're the footprints of a brain that loves to explore, to dream, to create, to do all of these wonderfully beautiful things without the heavy burden of having to be perfect all the time. It doesn't help when you're like me and you tend to overthink things. You really want it to be perfect, but that's a perfectionism paradox. I fall into it all the time, and it's really hard to pull yourself out of that. But when you give yourself enough time away, when you realize how much passion you had for it, when you finally are hit with the motivation yet again to do it, to pick it back up, you dust yourself off and you do it. So if there's an old guitar sitting in your closet right now, or a half-drawn page waiting in your sketchbook, or an abandoned sandbox world you haven't opened in months, I challenge you, give it just one more day. Before you let the loop start again, before your drive fades entirely, open that old project and spend just 30 minutes more pushing past the friction. See what happens when you refuse to give up. You might just find that the magic of day one hasn't vanished at all. It's always been there, waiting for you to pick up exactly where you left off. Thanks for watching, and remember, every end is just a new beginning.